even then, still, they won't do it because they don't think that they could ever be a victim. I think it's the byproduct of living in the greatest emergency management system ever constructed in the history of mankind, where there could be a dead body on the side of the road, and pending the investigation, an hour later, it's gone. And it's like it never even happened. And people live in a lot of ignorance. I tell people to talk to a 911 operator. If you know one personally, ask them about how many phone calls they receive a day and the atrocious types of events and incidents that are taking place. You're just not aware to it. One, because you lack situational awareness. You're probably in your phone most of the time. And two, because of the way that things are constructed here in the States, you don't ever have to be exposed to it for the most part. I mean, when people see a car accident, it's like, holy cow, hit the brakes. Let me see if I could see any sort of carnage. And then they end up seeing some maybe once or twice in their whole life. Most people go their whole life and they never see a dead body outside of a casket.
Papaya! Hello all and welcome to another episode of Transform Your Future with me, Eddie Isin, where I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and high achievers as they identify areas I can improve on and guide me to further my self-improvement practice. For more information and insights, join my newsletter at transformyourfuture.com, where I write about reinvention, personal growth, and entrepreneurship. If you like the show, you'll love the content on my site. We want to hear from you. Let us know how we can improve your listening and viewing experience. Suggest upcoming topics or a great guest you know for the show. Please reach out to us through our website, your podcast app, comment, or just text me directly at 813-722-1417. We want to hear from you. Today, I'm thrilled to have a conversation with Joe Malone, a former Marine and the visionary founder of Lethality University. Joe's journey is one of resilience, transformation, and finding purpose in the face of adversity. After a difficult departure from the military, Joe found himself at a crossroads, homeless, struggling, and searching for meaning. But instead of succumbing to despair, he channeled his experiences into helping others protect themselves and their loved ones. In this episode, Joe opens up about his personal battles, the importance of finding purpose, and how he's dedicated his life to teaching others the critical skills of self-defense and personal security. We dive deep into the rise of violent crime in the United States, the philosophy behind Lethality University, and why Joe believes that true peace comes from the ability to defend oneself. Whether you're a veteran transitioning to civilian life or simply someone looking to feel safer and more confident in today's world, Joe's insights are sure to inspire and equip you with valuable knowledge. So get ready to explore the intersection of purpose, protection, and personal growth in this thought-provoking conversation with Joe Malone. Okay, hey, welcome to Transform Your Future podcast, Joe. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. I'm great, Eddie. Thank you.
Excellent. So I want to jump right in. I want to talk about, let's talk about what was the impetus for you as a Marine seeking purpose? Tell me a little bit about how you ended up with the self-defense training.
So when I decided to get out of the Marine Corps, which ultimately was somewhat decided for me, I got kicked out from a really stupid event that took place, and I found myself completely ostracized from the community that I had sacrificed so much for. And no real game plan for getting out. I was broke. I was homeless. I was living on a beach. I was just going to basically shoot myself. And I had these moments of reflection where I was just wondering how I got to that point, because that wasn't like me. And what I had realized is that I lacked purpose. And the most fulfilled times and periods of my life is when I had purpose, when I was creating progress towards an end state, or as Earl Nightingale likes to say, success is defined as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And that really stuck with me when I first started listening to Earl Nightingale. And I decided from that point forward, hey, I'm pretty good at fighting, and I haven't been shot yet, but been shot at a lot, and I've shot at some people. So I figured maybe I could help people out with that themselves. My family has suffered a little bit of loss from murder and various other things, so violent crime. And I just want to be able to help people. And so that's kind of where it all started to stem from.
So during this obstacle, this challenge, this failure, if you will, happened to you in your life, and it caused you to look inside and look at what you're doing, see what you can learn from it, and it led you to this place of wanting to have a purpose, to fulfill the purpose of helping people to better protect themselves against violent crime. That's
Exactly.
that's awesome. A lot of other people would have just retreated, and who knows what they would have done? Maybe drown themselves in the bottle.
Yeah, and to be clear, I did a lot of that. I was popping prescription meds. I was, taking a lot of MDMA, ecstasy. I was doing anything that I possibly could to just not feel the way that I was feeling. But I've always been a pretty pragmatic and self-aware person, and so I think that contributed to me ultimately trying to figure out what was going on and driving on.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, as you started this journey, I'm just curious, like, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, starting out on this journey, what were some of the things that you looked at to set this thing up in motion for you?
So the first thing I started looking at was what's going to pay me the best because I was so desperately broke. I had a little bit of money as I was leaving the military, but I got involved in high risk stock options trading and ended up losing it all, took out a loan, lost all that. So I was seriously, seriously in debt. And overseas contracting was the first thing that I saw myself getting my foot kind of in the door in terms of momentum and some sort of income. And so I looked at that and I went overseas. I set up some programs for an intel company that's based out of Israel. But then I really quickly realized when my tax bill was due what it means to be a sole proprietor. And I was not okay with that at all. Immediately, I went into full-fledged panic. I mean, I paid like 40 or 60% taxes that year. And I couldn't believe it. So from that point forward, it was really the structure of the company and how I could not hide my money from the government, but the tax system is set up for business owners to take advantage of it. And I had never been taught any of this stuff before. They don't teach you this in school, and they don't teach you in the Marines. That's for damn sure. So that was my biggest thing is what could I look at in terms of a legal and tax strategy to best set myself up for success?
And so, did that lead you to get more contracts with these companies that wanted to have their? I assume that you're training their personnel.
Well, I was setting up what's called, it's essentially an information gathering, a data acquisition operation for intelligence purposes. And what that means is I was teaching people how to extract data and information from cellular devices, whether that's the Internet Crimes Against Kids Task Force arresting a perpetrator or a suspect, or overseas when a terrorist gets killed on an objective, you take their mobile device, you plug into it, and it just populates everything. So I was setting up some of those programs overseas, which was like the pipeline for, hey, this is how you gather the data. This is what you do with the data. This is how you can action it. I was in pretty high demand. A guy with my background when it comes to overseas contracting, you don't really struggle too hard to find work, but I had some close calls and I ended up almost burning down a hotel in West Africa. And after that, I was like, okay, I think I'm kind of done with this for now. I just had a kid. So I will say this though, that setting things up properly does alleviate a lot of the stress because when you actually have income and you don't have to pay it all right back to the government, it allows you to begin to think a little bit more creatively. It cools that survivalist sympathetic nervous system because you're freaking out all the time, panicked, which unfortunately a lot of people constantly live in that state of high stress and frustration, and they never get to think creatively because they're so worried about the surmounting pressures of paying the bills or having the house foreclosed on. And so it allowed me the opportunity to breathe a little bit, which allowed me the opportunity to think creatively and then to find new avenues of approach. When this all happened, it was 2020. So as I'm getting into this point, it's 2020 and I'm realizing that people need help more than ever. I live in Chicago. Chicago was burnt to the ground, basically. Aside from the actual frame of the structures, I mean, it was destroyed during those riots. And there were a lot of people who were living their lives in a lot of fear. And so that allowed me to morph what I've been working on and creating this unidentifiable service into personal safety and security specifically.
That's very interesting. So, you mentioned before. So, why is it that there's such a high percentage and statistically of veterans with suicidal ideation and veteran suicides?
I think it's multifaceted, but the biggest thing is purposelessness. And when I realized that, I had a lot of realizations that kind of came together at the same time. So as I'm building this momentum, finally developing an income stream, trying to find how I'm going to serve people here in the United States, I also really started to realize, like, man, purposelessness is one of the greatest causes of people wanting to kill themselves. I think like 3 or 4 guys I used to work with have killed themselves since I got out. So about one a year from my community specifically, which is really, really small. And I wanted to help transition into the private sector because for me, it was probably as bad as it could have ever been for anybody. I jacked it up so many different ways. And I wanted to help people find their purpose in the private sector, not make the same mistakes and get ripped off by the same web designers and the same data people. And it's just, there's an endless stream of things that you don't think about that you end up having to pay for. And I also don't want to see veterans get stuck into this stagnant loop of, hey, here's your veteran service programs, and if you make 6 figures, then that's it. Like, that's the golden stamp of the veteran post-military life, because that's not true either. I want to really help guys and girls explore entrepreneurship and creative thought and really just blossom, because at that point, the sky's the limit. When I had that realization, it was at the same time of people not knowing how to defend themselves. And that's really where the Lethality University comes into play. I wanted to create a platform where people could communicate, network, get to know each other, learn from the mistakes that I made going into the private sector, but at the same time, freshen, learn, or even sharpen their skills in knowing how to be a very lethal human being, discipline, mindset, skill sets, and habits. That's what it's all boiling down to. And just basically put it into the same pot for anybody, and everybody can join.
Great. So say it again. It's the Lethality, what?
The Lethality University, yeah.
University.
Lethal U, yeah.
Yeah, Lethal U. That's awesome. So what's the power of that? And why is being lethal the single most greatest skill a man can have?
Well, I think Jordan Peterson was the one who said something about not being dangerous, and you're not. What it boils down to is some people will say, well, I'm a peaceful person. And I would argue with them. I mean, I wouldn't even really argue. I would just say, no, you're not a peaceful person, because a peaceful person is somebody who's capable of inflicting great violence, great lethality upon others, but they don't, because they're disciplined and they have the proper structure and the proper mindset to where they morally don't want to do that. If you're incapable of inflicting great violence upon another human being, well, then you're just incapable. So you're not peaceful. To be peaceful means that you're actively participating in the role of a peaceful person, of a peacemaker. It's an adverb, to be peaceful. It's the description of an action. Whereas somebody who is capable of inflicting great and, of course, justified violence upon another human being, they are peaceful because they're disciplined, and morally and consciously they guide themselves along a certain code of morality to where if I wanted to, I could definitely be very violent, but I don't want to. And so I just fall back on that and rely upon that as a necessary means to preserve peace within society. When you look at every society that's ever been formed throughout all of history and mankind, what is it that allows for the stability of the society to function? And it is the peacekeepers, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the military. It is men and women who are capable of inflicting incredible violence upon anyone who dares to test that stillness within society, that peaceful resonance within society. And so that's what it always boils down to is, hey, are you a peaceful person or incapable person? Because as the motto of the company is, those capable of great lethality are capable of preserving great peace. And I've lived it, I've seen it, and I believe that through and through.
And, curiously, on the other side, we see an increase in violence often, especially, I mean, it's often top of mind, right? Because it's the news and it's the media, talking about these things. Why do you think we're seeing such an increase in violent crime in the United States?
So I've had a lot of really interesting conversations about this. Some people say that we're not. A lot of people are actually saying that we live in the most peaceful time that we ever really have in terms of a society. Mm-hmm. However, the way that the news manufactures information, if it bleeds, it reads, it resonates with the primitive survivalist portion of the brain. So therefore, you're always going to be drawn to that type of information at a much more rapid and attention-grabbing and emotional rate as opposed to anything positive. Unfortunately, it's just the way that we're designed to survive. However, I don't know if I necessarily agree with people when they say that, because I think we're seeing an increase of victimization. And the increase of the victimization is taking place because people are incapable of defending themselves. And if I'm a hardened criminal, and everybody is stuck in their cell phones because we're addicted to it, and people have social anxiety, which is also perpetuated by the information they're receiving on the mobile device, because all negative news is associated with other human beings. And if we begin to program our brains to believe all human beings are associated with negative information, negative news, well, no wonder why social anxiety is at an all-time high. We're incapable of defending ourselves. 60% of Americans have diabetes. That's insane. So the primitive unconscious part of our brain knows that you are truly incapable of defending yourself against anything whatsoever. Even the wind blows and some people fall over. It's absolutely insane. So with all of that unconscious information programming into the brain, it's going to elevate that sympathetic nervous system, heighten your levels of anxiety. Well, what's designed to cool that? Homeostasis. We always want balance. So we look at our mobile device because it gives us just that little bit of feel good. And so now our attention, our focus is down on the mobile device. We don't want to look at people anyways because we're so incapable of defending ourselves. We don't even know what to do. And so if I'm a criminal, I'm just going to go up to you and stab you, carjack you, shoot you, whatever. It doesn't even matter. You're not even going to fight back. So I think that that's the one of the biggest reasons. Plus, you see all these defund the police initiatives that took place and how horrible those went. I mean, I thought that would have been common sense, but apparently not to some people. And we just try to constantly reward the criminal, especially out here in Chicago, for example. You could fit a slew of crimes, but if you're matching certain criteria in terms of like you're from these neighborhoods or those neighborhoods, then you end up walking. Like they got rid of cash bail here in Illinois, and that's just one of the worst. You could literally sexually assault a woman, get arrested, processed, and then you're out on the street again in a couple of hours. And it's happened on multiple occasions already. So I think that's why we're seeing this increase, is because of a lack of ability for human beings to defend themselves against it, because criminals are less likely to do it when they get shot back. And also because of a lack of accountability within our current political and judicial systems.
So it's not just about protecting yourself and, against violence and being able to have the confidence that you could defend yourself, but it's also about the whole idea of lethality, you with the mindset and purpose and being able to fulfill your purpose and, be successful in whatever endeavor your purpose drives you to.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I right? Absolutely. I'm an anti-violence advocate. I've stood over dead bodies. I've been shot people, all that stuff. And every single time it's like, why? It's a waste of fragile, amazing, beautiful human life. And the only way, unfortunately, it's this strange like dichotomy of, in order to truly be peaceful, or like the ancient Chinese proverb, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And it's sad. It's unfortunate. I get that, but it's a reality. Some people are dicks.
Certainly. And, obviously you have to protect yourself against them because they're out there.
Yeah, because they're going to hurt you. They're going to hurt your family. And imagine, I just had this conversation with a man. Imagine if we have these home invasions that take place out here where I'm at in the suburbs of Chicago in the summertime. People will leave their garage door open, and on a Sunday morning, they'll have 3 armed criminals run into their house and hold them all at gunpoint. Imagine you're with your family. I don't know if you're married or kids or anything, but for the audience, generally speaking, and you're eating breakfast, drinking coffee. It's a Sunday morning. You're relaxing. And now you got three young punk, almost teenagers in your house making demands. They pistol whip you. They pistol whip your kid, your wife. And there's nothing you can do about it. Good luck garnering the respect of your family. Good luck making love to your wife following an incident like that, because you're going to be so demoralized. You're going to be every shred of manhood and being the provider and the protector. Provider and protector of what? You were just had your card pulled and you were slipping, my friend. And now your wife saw it. Your wife was maybe abused. Your kids saw it. Your kids were fearful. Like, Dad can't protect me.
It's a terrible, traumatic experience.
And it has significant long-term effects on the nuclear family, on the family construct, on the way that you're looked at, not to mention the way that you believe in yourself. And you're not going to have that confidence anymore, possibly for the rest of your life. And so it's really about maintaining the integrity of your position within a family in the terms of being the protector. And when push comes to shove, being capable of doing so.
Yeah, well, I believe in self-protection. I believe in learning about, how to defend yourself. I believe in talking about it and training for it, right? So I do most people, they agree with this idea that we should defend ourselves. We should learn how to defend ourselves. We should learn how to have situational awareness about what's around us and what's going on to be mindful of things, right? People tend to agree with that.
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell at this point, man. I think it might be like 60-40 no. Like 60% of people don't think it's necessary. I don't know if that's a viable number or not, but it's strange and interesting to me that when there's only a select group of people in the world who are better at teaching and implementing firearms than I am. Like a very small select few. I'm in the top 0.001% of the world. And when I have these conversations with people, it's almost like they want me to convince them that they need to take this type of training. And unfortunately, I'm not very good at trying to convince people in terms of sales. I just illustrate things that I know and that I've seen and that I've learned. And even then, still, they won't do it because they don't think that they could ever be a victim. I think it's the byproduct of living in the greatest emergency management system ever constructed in the history of mankind, where there could be a dead body on the side of the road and pending the investigation, an hour later, it's gone. And it's like it never even happened. And people live in a lot of ignorance. I tell people to talk to a 911 operator. If you know one personally, ask them about how many phone calls they receive a day and the atrocious types of events and incidents that are taking place. You're just not aware to it. One, because you lack situational awareness. You're probably in your phone most of the time. And two, because of the way that things are constructed here in the States, you don't ever have to be exposed to it for the most part. I mean, when people see a car accident, it's like, holy cow, hit the brakes. Let me see if I could see any sort of carnage. And then they end up seeing some maybe once or twice in their whole life. Most people go their whole life and they never see a dead body outside of a casket. And I think that breeds a sense of ignorance and an unnecessary sense of security.
Yeah, certainly there's, different movements out there that have different messaging. And I know there's some messaging like, that there's something wrong with me because I like to own guns and I like to shoot at the range and I like my kids to know how to shoot guns and shoot at the range. And some people are just like, why would you do that? Like, well, why not? I don't understand. Like, we shouldn't know how to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves. That's like, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. And never before in the history of mankind has disempowering a people ever been useful. It's always about empowering people. All these active shooters you see, it's not a law-abiding citizen who takes training and is well-educated. It's never that person. There's like a couple of anomalous cases, like let's say the Las Vegas shooting, for example, which, by the way, we still never solved. They just kind of threw smoke and mirrors over that thing and said, I don't look here anymore, which that was the worst active shooter incident we've ever had in this country by far, the most suspicious circumstances, and yet no answers to that. I have my own theories on it. I think it was a government operation that got botched somehow. It's all about empowering people. And you can never make somebody dumb and give them a better quality of life. You can never disempower them and give them a better quality of life. It's all about education, knowledge, experience, growth, looking out for one another and growing as a humanity, as a species with each other. It's all about growth. And when you look at things from my background, I've seen how certain operations take place at the highest level of government, whether in America or all these other foreign countries that I've operated in. And to me, it's pretty obvious why anybody would ever want to push the message of disarming a population. And it's not some crazy whack conspiracy. I've literally been in countries where they broke out into a civil war right then and there. I was in the middle of it. And I could tell you the side that won was the side that was well armed and equipped, which, by the way, that's how the United States enforces gun policy across the globe. We arm, equip, and train people so that they could overthrow whatever government we don't want them to have in place. Just so we're clear on that with everybody, if you're anti-gun, the U.S. government literally enforces gun control by arming, training, and then empowering and resourcing certain groups of people across the globe. Why would they ever want to take that away from the American people? The only viable reason that I could see from my experience is that they don't want somebody to put up a fight if they come in and say something crazy.
Interesting. Yeah. They want to keep us so that they could just hurt us and make us do whatever they want to do and drive us in this other direction, but not to be educated and not to be, understanding and not to protect ourselves and not to stand up for our rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I had an interview with a woman. She was a former inner city teacher, and she was telling me why she left teaching. And her YouTube channel is like Teaching with Trish or something like that. Super awesome lady. And she was telling me how the inner city school system is purposefully rewarding stupid, ignorant behavior and rewarding the students for that. And then by the time that they go out into society, they're just completely set up for failure. And she couldn't do it anymore. She left because of that. And it's worked its way into our suburban schools, and it's working its way into private schools because these teachers that get these amazing scores on turning the class around when really they're just giving them fake grades essentially for dumb behavior. It just perpetuates this cycle of ignorance and a lack of problem solving and communication, and therefore it contributes to the downfall of the societal structure.
Let's talk about your program again just a little bit. So tell me a little bit about how the program works.
Yeah, the Lethality University is an online training platform. So the first series that we're coming out with in about a week actually is the home defense series. So it's on pre-sale release right now, one-time payment. After that, it's going to move to a monthly basis subscription. And the reason behind that is because we're adding so much new training to it constantly. We have a community where people can learn, talk with one another, geographically get to know each other. We do wholesale guns. So I'm an FFL. Any member gets immediate wholesale pricing, no markup. I make zero profit off of it. And the goal is just to help one another get to know like-minded people and to enhance your training. Everything in the home defense series is everything I do as a former special operations Marine to keep my family safe, brought to you. I hide nothing. And we break down all sorts of examples. We have a leaderboard. I could see where you're struggling, what you're scoring well on. We talk about political climate, social climate, different types of weapon systems for various types of environments. We have all sorts of USCCA, NRA training, anything and everything designed around helping you become a better, more disciplined human being capable of great lethality. That's what we got in there.
So, and how does that, how do you include those other things we were talking about purpose and mindset and those other items?
So, the lethal lifestyle is somewhat designed around the Japanese way, Bushido, the way of the warrior, utilized by the samurais in ancient Japan. And depending upon the era, there's different tenets, but ultimately they all mean the same thing. And that's what the community is all about. So first and foremost, you have to resonate with that type of a message. We don't tolerate douchebags. We don't allow well, I can't wait to just shoot somebody. No, it's not about that. You don't ever want to have to hurt another human being, but you're just capable of it. And you will, if it comes down to it, justifiably. And so when we get into like the more advanced stuff, when people are coming into the group calls, that's when we could start talking about other things like, what's your nutrition look like? What does your physical fitness look like? 'Cause all this stuff is connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to really look forward into what are your finances? What does your career look like? How does your family view you? What do you want for your family? So these are all like building blocks. It starts at the first, most basic. Hey, what are your capabilities of first and foremost keeping yourself safe and secure, your family safe and secure? Then we start to look at your physical, your mental, emotional well-being. And then when you have all that stuff lined in, I call it conscious congruence, alignment, realignment to the true self. Now everything else in your life starts to really fall into place. And it's not falling into place. That kind of sounds passive. It's a very active thing that you're doing. But when you're vibrating, when you elevate yourself to operate at a consistent high vibrational frequency, which is associated with gratitude, servitude, positive thoughts and energy, you shift your paradigm and you begin to prime your brain in what's known as the reticular activating system to now see things that are resonant at that vibrational frequency. Some people call this the law of attraction. It's called the law of vibration. Bob Proctor breaks it down a lot. So do other people as well, John Asseroff and Ed Millett. But when your brain is tuned in at that level and you're seeing these opportunities and you're more likable to people who operate at those wealthier, higher levels, whatever it is, wealth or opportunity, then you now have the confidence and the ability to back it all up because you have the skill sets to keep yourself safe and secure. You keep that sympathetic system cooled down. You think creatively, you take initiative, you problem solve, and you have the habits of somebody who is capable of doing anything in life. And that's what's most beautiful about it.
Yeah. To become a real warrior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. In all things.
Truly. I mean, it's not just about, I can pull a trigger. What do you do from the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep? Imoto Musashi, the greatest Japanese samurai who ever lived, said, waste no time on anything. Always find purpose in your life. And Tecumseh, the native chief, said, beautify all things in your life. And as you study these magnificent men, a couple women as well were warrior chiefs all throughout history. But even then, like the women of the tribes, like the wives and the supporters of these tribes, they always talk about the same thing as well. Beautify things, be responsible, be respectful, be kind. When things are organized, there's just a certain level of beauty to it all. And that's really what life is all about.
Yes, I agree. So, if somebody wanted to get more information about Lethality U, they can just go to your website.
Yeah, joemalonetraining.com, or you can reach out on Instagram, Joseph Malone Official, and it's me. I'm not to the point where I'm not responding personally. Hopefully I'll be there pretty soon. But for now, it'll always be me messaging you back. So if you got questions on anything, or just follow to get good, useful tips. Every day I'm putting stuff out. So that way you could maybe learn something, stimulate some thought, and keep yourself or your loved ones a little bit safer.
Absolutely. We've talked about several things. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up?
I just don't want people to forget most people are good. Like most people are good people. I don't want you to live your life head on a swivel. I don't want you to live your life distrustful of one another. The most beautiful thing about being lethal is that you can open yourself up to other people, other strangers, other adventure and opportunity. You take calculated risks and you do it with clarity of thought because if things started to go sideways, you have a great chance of surviving and keeping yourself safe. So don't forget that most people are good people and you could truly accomplish anything you want in this life. You just have to put your mind to it and then begin to move forward on it.
Yes. I love that. I love what you're doing, man. And it's I think it's very commendable what you're doing. And I think it's awesome that you found your purpose, which has now fueled your life. And it sounds like you've also completely changed your life, right?
Yeah,
like you've turned things around. So I think that's awesome. I mean, be able to do that and to face those challenges and to really break it down for yourself and realize like I've got to do some things and I've got to change some things and the way I think and the way I act. I need to really look at that. What do I do, all day? What am I doing? And you start observing yourself and what you're doing and then make those changes. That's a big deal. A lot of people are just not aware. I mean, a lot of people I talk to, I don't think they're honest with themselves about, who
Yeah.
they are and what they do.
That's a big thing. Yeah. Yeah. Lack of honesty. And so,
Yeah.
if anybody wants to find a new level in life, new relationships, new meaning, new purpose, that's exactly what Lethal You is all about. And I would encourage you to reach out. It's not expensive. And if you're not satisfied after 90 days, I'll give you your money back. I don't even care. I just love seeing people transform themselves. And I know that it works because I live it every single day of my life.
Do you have any story that you want to tell about anybody that you've trained that made a difference in their lives, or they changed some things around?
Yeah, a really interesting one was when I started promoting myself on social media. It's been about a year now. I think I've only been really promoting myself. I've always been anti social media because operations security and all that stuff. But I got a message from a guy that I used to know. So I used to shoot up heroin when I was a teenager. Like I was deep in drug use as a young kid. And I got a message from a guy. He was never into this stuff, but he knew me back then. And he was like, "Hey man, I see you on social and I wanted to reach out for some help." And I thought he was like making fun of me. I haven't talked to this dude in 15, 20 years almost, but he was serious. And he came over, we talked, put him on program, and he was like 330 pounds, I think. And we got him down to sub 300 in just a matter of a few months, like 3 or 4 months. And it was all done very healthy. It wasn't some crazy fasting for 7 days. Very healthy, very good weight loss. His family started to be in alignment. His daughter was suicidal. They'd been struggling with some stuff with his daughter for some while. But he noticed that when he started leading by example and his energy shifted, the whole family shifted. And for like the first time in years, he wasn't worried about his daughter doing that to herself. I don't know how he's doing now, unfortunately, because what happens is once people make a little bit of progress, they start to go on and then they sometimes will fall off and I can't hold your hand. And that's called the psychocybernetic mechanism. Maxwell Maltz wrote a book on that and how we all always want to pull ourselves back to what we know and what we're comfortable with. But I can tell you that the time that we were together, it was awesome to see his family make such an amazing shift. And I look forward to helping him out again whenever he does come back. So,
what happens is that, I tell some of the people I work with, you need to watch out. Like, I understand, like when you're feeling bad, you're motivated to do something. When you're having pain and problems, you're motivated to do something. And then when those start to dissipate and they go away, then you start to feel happy and you feel like things are good and I'm looking forward to stuff. And I said, but watch out, because that's a trigger too, because then you could stop doing the work. Right. And you want to, I tell people, like, you always want to continue to do the work. You don't want to be complacent. You don't want to just rest on your laurels and just coast now. You want to keep pushing yourself and do more, be more, and keep learning and keep leveling up. Keep finding places to improve, because everything that's green grows. And when you're not green anymore and you're not growing anymore, then we're dying. So it's like either we're going towards death or we're going towards life. It's, it's up to us what we're going to choose. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
so true. Yeah, there is no stagnancy in life. You're either dying or you're growing.
Yes.
And you need to break through those comfort barriers. Find comfort in discomfort and know that that's progression. And that is the key to always maintaining your edge and maintaining your discipline and your focus. Like somebody asked me recently, well, when is it going to be enough, Joe? Like what is considered like retirement or coasting or something? And my thought process on that for a moment, it was monetary, because I'm already going to keep doing everything else that I do for the rest of my life. That's never going to stop. But the one thing that I could see marking a point of completion would be financially. And it would be when I could literally go and do anything at any point in time with my entire family for the rest of my life. When I have that amount of money, and I have a number in my head as to what that needs to be, but when I could do that for the rest of my life, and then they could also do that for the rest of their lives, that's when I'll say, okay, I think that I'm ready to shift my focus now. Doesn't mean I'm going to give my kids everything, by the way. Screw that. The way my trust is set up, they get pennies and pennies and pennies. One of the best things that ever happened to me is my parents never gave me anything. My mom was raised on a cattle farm and she made me work for every damn penny of my life. And that was one of the best things she could have ever done. So don't ever expect a handout. Nobody owes you anything. You have to always keep earning it.
Yes, that's awesome. I really enjoyed my time with you, Joe. I'm going to be in touch, and I'm going to definitely check you out on social media and see if I grab some of those tips and some new ideas.
Cool, man. Look forward to it.
Thank you, my brother.
Thanks, Eddie.
For more information and monthly topics of interest, please go to transformyourfuture.com and join the newsletter.